Hello and welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting channel. My name is Rachel, I am your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada, and this channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts. I have a lot to talk about today, and I'm hoping that you find them fun and interesting the way that I have. But before that, I thought maybe I would introduce myself a little bit because it's been a while since I've done that and there are a lot more people here now. So some quick facts about me. I'm 25. I am a grad student and hopefully for only one more semester. And I also work part-time, and I've been knitting for almost 3 years. Well, I learned how to knit when I was younger, and I knit a couple random blobs and also a garter scarf that's currently wrapped around the bottom of my bookshelf as a reminder of my first ever project, but it never really stuck up until 2020 when I picked it up again, this time knitting left-handed during the pandemic and during a period really bad health and a lot of medical treatment, and it really helped me take my mind off things. So I'm a left-handed knitter. I can also knit right-handed, but I really came back to it after getting into crochet, and in crochet, directionality mattered and handedness matter less, and so it was pretty easy to learn how to knit to crochet left-handed, and then it made sense to kind of transfer how I tensioned my yarn into knitting more comfortably. And also because after a lifetime of having every single teacher or instructor ever tell me, oh, whatever, just learn how to do it right-handed, this is my hill to die on for left-handed rights. But that's me. And I have a very obsessive personality and a strong tendency towards hyperfixation. I love knitting and I really like talking about knitting. So if you're new, thanks so much for joining. If you've been here before, hey, it's me again, welcome back. So before we talk about the knitting, of which I have 3 finished objects and a multitude of new whips you have not seen before, I would like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video. We have a sponsor, and it is Luisa, which if you've watched YouTube before, I'm sure you've come across them already. But they are a jewelry brand that offers accessible everyday pieces to kind of elevate your everyday wardrobe. And I was so excited when they reached out to me to partner in order to promote their Valentine's Day buy one get one 50% off sale, because I've bought from them before using my own money and really like what they make. But a year ago, I got these very earrings, or this very style of earrings, and wore them all the time. You can see me wearing them in at least my everything I made in my first year of knitting video. And over winter break, I tragically lost one of them. I put 2 in my bag to go to sleep and then took the bus from Toronto to Ottawa, and then when I checked my bag, only 1 earring was there. So I was already looking at repurchasing these earrings. I love them so much, the Fridas. So when Luisa reached out to me to work together, I jumped at the chance. They also sent me this beautiful Rowena gold-plated necklace, which I've been wearing a lot and have received several compliments on. And in the spirit of their Valentine's Day buy one get one 50% off, match with a friend or a loved one, give yourself and someone else you love a gift, I inquired to my mother what holes she felt she had in her jewelry collection, and I got her this from them as well, which is the Leo regular necklace in the long length, and it is another beautiful gold-plated necklace. Some things that I really love about Luisa is that their pieces start at $39 US, so they're generally more affordable considering the types of materials that they use. Most of their stuff, including the ones that I'm wearing, use recycled sterling silver as their base and then a gold plate on top. And recycling important minerals is a huge deal for sustainability, which is something I really admire. They're also certified carbon neutral and climate neutral, and I just really like what they make. They also sent me these really sweet bliss earrings, which are the very similar to these huggy hoop Fridas that I'm wearing, but have this beautiful floral mother of pearl on the inside, which I really like because pearl is my birthstone and I like to wear them a lot. I'm a June baby, I'm a Gemini, maybe you could tell. But yeah, I'm really happy to have partnered with this brand. They offer international shipping and free returns within the continental United States. I personally have found Ana Luisa jewelry very wearable, very easy to integrate into my outfits, and they very much become staples in my wardrobe. So I'm also happy to report that I've had my lone little orphan Frida. This I've had for a year, and when I unwrapped my new ones, I cannot tell which is the one that I've had and worn extensively for the past year and which are the two that came new. So overall, I'm thrilled, and I highly recommend that you check out their Valentine's Day buy one, get one 50% off sale. There will be a link in the description box below. The sale runs until February 16th, so you can grab you and a loved one, a partner, a parent, or a friend matching piece with you in them, or something for the both of you. And if you're watching this after the sale has already ended, they also very generously gave me a discount code to give to all of you for 20% off your first purchase, which is Night Sky 20. You can also find that in the description box below. So thank you to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video. Let's get into the knitting. Oh, did you maybe fall for my ruse? Did you fall for my ruse that none of my finished objects were a garment this week? Can you tell I'm quite pleased with myself for this incredibly minor fake out? My first finished object is my Lakes Pullover by Ozetta, by Haley Smedley of Ozetta Knitwear. And I love it a lot. I finished this 4 or 5 days ago on Wednesday, wove in a million ends and blocked it, and I know there is also, of course, recency bias that exists, but this is really currently in this moment, it feels like a top 5 knit, easily maybe a top 3 for me. I love it a lot. I knit this in Simply Wool Worsted by Knit Picks in the color Winnie, which is an undyed blend of just different sheep pelts, fleeces, to get this dark grayish beige that I kind of felt like was a risk for me, but now that I have it, I want to knit several more sweaters in this color. I think it really makes my skin look nice, and it makes my hair kind of pop against it because my hair is kind of warm toned and my skin is kind of cool toned. And this really is just the most comfortable sweater for me. And I also find it very flattering on my figure, and it was a joy to knit. I enjoyed almost every stitch. This is, if you couldn't see, a saddle shoulder construction. And I've knit 2 other saddle shoulder construction garments before. This one is my favorite, and I think I have been bitten by the saddle shoulder bug. I know they're kind of all the rage right now. It's a trend that's very much emerging in knitting as far as I can see, at least from my vantage point, and I'm very here for it. I knit the second size. My measurements will be at the bottom of the description box below if you guys are curious and want to see what that means, but I'm pretty sure Haley of Ozetta Knitwear and I have the same bust measurement, so that works out very nicely, luckily for me, to get an idea of fit. And I was bang on gauge. I knit a swatch which told me I needed to go down a needle size. I did that, and I'm quite happy with it. I knit the sleeves longer than I normally would. If you've been here before, you'll know that I really prefer a bracelet length sleeve. I'd like to always be able to see my watch, and I'm short, so every store-bought sweater sleeve goes way above my hands, and it's annoying, and I normally work to avoid that in my knitwear. However, this is my first garment with this amount of ease. I'm wearing this with about 10 inches of positive ease, and this is my entry into the Young Folk Knits Bougie Sweatshirt knit along, and going into this with the idea of getting basically just kind of like a woolly sweatshirt, a big, cozy, layerable, thick, feels like armor in a cold snap sweater. I thought longer sleeves would suit it well, and I like it. It's been kind of fun to pull them over my hands. We, like many other people in my part of North America, had a pretty gnarly 2-day cold snap, which really isn't that bad, where it was about -40 for 2 days, and I lived in this. I was wearing like bralette, long sleeve, this on top, around the house, to my classes, and to meet my friends for drinks. So it's been a little bit worn in, and I really don't have any intentions of taking it off anytime soon. Looking forward to wearing this a lot. This sweater has really solidified my love for Ozetta patterns. Already knit one, this cardigan, blending in with my chair, that I wear so often that it doesn't even really go in the closet or a wardrobe. It sits on the back of this chair so I can grab it really easily. And the shaping in this lace pullover is just so good. There's 5 different sections of short row shaping to shape the back, raise the shoulders, make the sleeves fit really nicely, that I personally found really fun to knit. I like sections of short rows because they keep me engaged, they're fun, and it's a good way to break up otherwise an all stockinette garment. I really like the instructions she gives to bind off this neck. It keeps it stretchy, but still with a good shape. I like that all the pickup lines add a lot of stability to it. And I think what really has won me over to this chunky saddle shoulder is I like the fit of a drop shoulder a lot. I feel kind of so-so about knitting them because I just don't like having to put all those different sections on hold and cut the yarn a million times and pick up a million times. It just leaves me with a million ends to weave in, and I don't love that. However, I do think with this kind of saddle shoulder, it's worth it because you have the stability of all those seams, and I like the fit a lot. But the thing that really I don't always love about a drop shoulder is that I'm short, and I have correspondingly short arms. And with a drop shoulder, when I wear one, and it, the shoulder starts here, and then everybody can see this like 10-inch arm that I have, and then it just makes me look kind of stumpy. All those broken up bits, that clear line that cuts the design from the body to the sleeve makes me look kind of stumpy, and I don't like how it breaks up whatever pattern you're going for, even if it's stockinette. I don't like how the direction of the stitches sometimes kind of moves a little bit. I don't like that very obvious seam. And that's the main thing that keeps me away from drop shoulder designs a lot of the time. However, this saddle, this seamless bit that goes straight from the shoulder down, erases that for me. Obviously, you still have the picked up stitches and you have that line here, but now it feels like a design element. And it really lengthens that line and elongates it and creates an infinitely more flattering shape on me personally. If this gives you a little bit of a better idea of what I'm talking about. And I'm a little bit obsessed with it. Every day since finishing this, I've had to fight the urge to buy yarn to make a second one, and I do think I will at some point, but I have more than enough yarn to make all sorts of other beautiful things right now, and I want to appreciate this one as much as it deserves, but also because this was a 45 Canadian dollar project for me. I got this yarn from Knit Picks on sale during their big sale, their big annual sale. I think it's literally called the big sale. I think this yarn was something like 40 or 50% off, so I paid 26 American dollars, which was 35 Canadian dollars for the yarn, and the pattern was 10 Canadian dollars, so this was a 45 or 46 dollar project for me, and I loved the yarn, I loved the pattern, I love the finished project, and I'm not going to get that with another fancy yarn. I really just like that this is, for me, a budget project for 100% natural, untreated fibers. I really like working with this yarn. I found it very minorly splitty on the purl side, but not problematically so. It felt really good in my hands. It felt really easy to get consistent stitches and a beautiful fabric, and it's a very round yarn. It's a very smooth yarn, and it's quite uniform. It smells quite sheepy, but I didn't really have to pick out any bits of vegetable matter, and it knit up really nicely. It felt good on my hands, and I really, really like this soft, almost heathered fabric. I have to wear something underneath this. This is not a sweater I would wear fully next to skin, and to that end, I used a 22-gram mini that I received from Color Mart that I think they send everybody with their first order. This is a cashmere thick and thin red and white 2-ply quantity of yarn they give people as a sample, and I thought it was nice, but I didn't have any idea what to do with it. So for this, because it's a folded neckband, I just got to the halfway point for this, switched yarns, held that Color Mart one double, and then knit the rest of it that way, so this neckline is that softer cashmere against my neck, which, because I continue to have sensitive skin to wool and mohair and related fibers, is just something I do to make my life a whole lot easier and extend the wearability of my knits. And then I put in elastic around the neckline to cinch it in a little bit more, because I think that having a little bit of a thicker inside neckband with that doubled up cashmere and the parts where a thick bit met another thick bit puffed it out a little bit. Didn't mind and I expected that, and I really love the feel of it, and I really love the fit of it, and I know I will make another one of these at some point in the future, and it'll be a battle to want to wear anything else this February. I am so happy I knit this. It took me about 3 weeks. It would have taken me a lot less. I think I could have easily done this in 2 weeks, given I had a little bit more of a lax school schedule beginning of January. But I really made myself put this down. Like, I would put it in another room and then get really comfortable with another knitting project on the couch to make sure that I didn't want to come up and grab this, because I had to force myself to stop working on this and work on the cardigan that I frogged in the last episode, work on a couple gifts, and do other things. The only thing about this sweater that's not 10 out of 10, that's not an A+, has nothing to do with the sweater. It has to do with the fact that I chose this really obvious yarn for the inside that I just described at length. And I like the idea of a contrast inside. I think it's a lot of fun. It feels like a cute, nod to myself, because who else is going to know when I put on the sweater? A fun little pop of color, a little stylistic thing. I was so nervous about being too hasty and not knitting enough with the inside that I accidentally knit it one row longer than I actually wanted, because ideally none of this red and white would show. And if I'm wearing my hair down, you can barely tell, especially after I put the elastic in. Can you see that? Not really. But I was wearing this, and I was wearing it, and I was happy, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I was preening at myself in my new sweater, and then it hit me that I chose this undyed sheep-colored beige taupe grayish color that kind of reminds me of a soft little animal. And then I have this red and white on the inside kind of poking out. And then am I wearing a roadkill sweater? Am I wearing a roast beef sweater? Is this a meat sweater? Beautiful, beautiful animal insides. Beautiful, beautiful, sweet little thing, guts. That's now what's in my head. That's now what's on my mind. But I've already folded down this neckband and secured 15 million ends into this, because the problem with the saddle shoulder, well, it's not necessarily a problem, but something about saddle shoulders is that you have more ends to weave in, because you cast on the 2 saddles and then you pick up along the back and then the front, but then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 extra ends all around this kind of neck torso area. And I also had extra ends from where I switched yarns up here, and then for pick up around the neckband and the front and the back. So many ends are secured somewhere within this neckband or around that same area that it just kind of feels like a bit of a nightmare to undo, to remove a single row and then do it again and then try and find all those ends that I've woven in and trimmed. I'm thinking about maybe duplicate stitching over that top, over the top to maybe cover up that bit. I don't think anyone's gonna think roadkill unless I point it out, but I have not been able to stop myself from pointing it out to everyone who's seen me wear this sweater. When I pointed it out to my roommate, she laughed so hard she cried. My father also laughed, and then he said, Nina began to get a grip. But I don't know if I want to be wearing a meat sweater because, first of all, gnarly. Second of all, I'm a vegetarian. I don't want to be thinking about meat in my little sweater. And third, it's just such a like imagery. But I love it. I love the sweater so much. It's mostly funny. The roadkill thing is mostly funny. It is funny. It's just one of those things where it's like, Rachel, come on. How did you not see this beforehand? How did you not think to make sure that this was going to be hidden by just like one less rose so that it's just the beautiful taupe? But yeah, this is my lace pullover. It took me 428 grams of worsted weight yarn. I didn't modify it almost at all, except I shortened the body by an inch. I took 1/2 inch from the stockinette and 1/2 inch from the rib because it was getting long from me and my torso. And I followed the decreases for the arms faithfully until I realized that they were going to take too long compared to the actual length of my arm. So you can see here, I sped up the rate of the decreases at the end, and then right before the ribbing, I would knit 8 stitches and then knit 2 together on the 9th and 10th, and then do that. I did that around both sleeves to do just the most minor of decrease rounds to get me a little bit past what it was supposed to be, because I was nervous that the sleeves were going to be too big, and I'm very, very happy with the final results. Overall, I highly, highly recommend this pattern. I do recommend this yarn. It's not prickly. There is an ever so slight itch factor, nothing that's not solvable with a t-shirt underneath. And also it might not be for anybody else because A, all of our skin is different, and B, I am somewhat wool sensitive, but I would absolutely knit with this yarn again. I have every intention of making this pattern again. And I think the Lakes Fits is a great bougie sweatshirt. I think it's a great elevated basic. I love it, and I think this has convinced me that I am happy with a sweater with a bit more positive ease and within the realm of like 8 to 10 inches of positive ease. So I'm overall thrilled with this. My next finished object is not as big or as exciting, but I don't think you guys are going to see this one coming. I knit a giant hair bow. I knit a giant hair bow for myself. This is Augustine's 22 by Augustine's DK, and it is what you see in front of you. It's a giant hair bow that I knit using some leftover yarn that I've had in stash for ages. This pattern came out Christmas 2021. I got it very soon after. I made one for my friend in some leftovers and twisted the cast on, and then so one of the bows has like a teensy bit of a twist in the side, and cast this one on again and made absolutely certain that I did not twist my cast on, and then I knit the first round, which is so many stitches. I don't want to give away how you construct this, but you start off with a bajillion stitches, and then I checked and I had actually twisted my cast on again. So I undid the first round and really, really looked, inspected every single individual stitch, looked at my cable, soaked the cable in some boiling water beforehand to make sure it really relaxed and had no swirls and no kinks in it. Cast on again. There was a twist in my cast on. Screamed. Got really frustrated. Reminded myself it's a hair bow. It's a scrappy hair bow. It's a little bow I put in the back of my head to feel kind of girly and twee when I'm on campus. to take advantage of my last few weeks of being able to wear more out there things before the main place I go is an office again, and I just kept knitting. And I'm gonna see if I can find the twist for you, because what I did was I found this again on the second row, and what I did was I just I untwisted it, knit it together. Here it is. Do you see it right there? That kind of messed up stitch. That's where I untwisted my cast on and kept going. So it left a bit of a in the fabric, but I knew it was a hair bow and I had to hunt to find it. No one's ever gonna see that. I finished this and I really enjoyed it. So I am, for the fun of it, partaking in Rachel is Knittings, who has a YouTube podcast and is also Rachel is Knitting on Instagram. Another Rachel in Knitting, who initiated created the knitting down 2,023 grams of yarn challenge for 2023, which I thought was super, super cute. I thought that was a really fun way of focusing on knitting from stash, and for me worked well with my kind of stash management goals, and I just thought it was fun. And so my goal, something that I'm currently finding fun to do is doing one scrappy project per month minimum. And this was mine for January, towards that 2,023 grams of yarn down goal. So this was exactly 23 grams. So that was fun because it's 2,023 grams and this is the 23. I used some leftover Fiber Company Acadia for this that I knit a Cozy Classic raglan in. This is listed as a DK. It's a sport, which is why I went wrong with that Cozy Classic raglan by Jessie Made Designs in my first year of knitting. And I know that now, but I think this is still a really pretty yarn. It's in the color Cormorant, and it looks gray here, it looks blue in some lights, it looks almost purple in others. And this is just a giant hair bow. The original this is meant to be a scrappy project too. You can see I've tied it around a hair elastic. I've seen other people put clips in this section to make it easier to secure, and when I wear it, I tie my hair into a little ponytail or a half up ponytail, and then I put a bobby pin through here to pin it to the back of my head because this is a little bit heavy because it's a giant hair bow. The original was also intended for using up scraps, and Sophie Velling, I think, is the designer behind August and DK's name. She used mohair and fingering scraps, which I think would make it a bit of a lighter bow and stand up on its own on the back of your head a little bit more easily, or on the front of your head, wherever you would want to put a bow. But I still found this to be a good option, and this was just fun. At the time of casting this on, I was working the front panel of this, and I had restarted my Lowe's cardigan, which I'll show you in a bit. And so I was knitting a ton of stockinette back and forth, so knitting a row and purling a row. And so I started this to have some just complete knitting in the round for a while and vary what my hands were doing, and I found it really enjoyable. I would like to say it's more knitting than you think it might be, and it uses more yarn than you think it would be. I cast on 40 fewer stitches than is recommended in the pattern, but I knew how to modify it to not create any problems because I knit this pattern before and it's pretty straightforward. I think if I had gone with the original stated cast on, it would have probably taken closer to 30 grams of yarn. But if you have a spare ball of DK or equivalent amounts of mohair and fingering, and you want a giant hair bow for yourself, for a child, for a loved one, it's a fun and cute, inexpensive pattern. I also think it would be maybe cute as a tree decoration. But I like it. I've worn it a couple times. My friends thought it was funny. I had a good time. And I'm going to a tea party next weekend, and I'm excited to wear it there. So yeah, I have, on the topic of the 2023 grams of yarn stash challenge, I have been keeping up with that via the notes app on my phone, and that's part of the reason why I know I used exactly 428 grams of yarn for this. I have seen a whole bunch of other people do different types of keeping track of their stash and what comes in and out. I know that grams isn't the perfect way of doing it because, for example, a worsted weight sweater eliminated 428 grams from stash, but I'm knitting spoiler alert, I'm knitting a Sophie shawl. Well, Sophie shawl, which is also a kind of significant project which takes a lot of yarn and a lot of knitting, but I'm doing it with Drops alpaca silk, so it will end up being maybe 60 grams of yarn out of stash for 2.5 weeks of knitting. It's not perfect, but it gets balls out of stash, and it was just something that kind of, I thought, ah yes, that'll be a fun way of doing it for me, because I'm not trying to work down my entire stash. I like having something of a stash. It's not, for me at this moment, a problem. It's a solution because then I can go into my stash and grab yarn for projects, and that's nice, especially since I'm back to working part-time and therefore making less money, so I rely on the materials that I have already purchased for myself. But I do want to have a bit less stash, and grams is an easy way for me to keep track of things, and I didn't want to do a full stash audit before all of this and count how many units I have, so I just measure what comes in and what comes out, either in the forms of scrappy projects, sweaters I have started after deciding on this goal for myself. That's pretty much my boundary there, is, for example, my Lowe's cardigan, I started that before deciding on this 23 grams of yarn for 2023's challenge, so the yarn doesn't count there, but this does and this does. So happy about this. My last finished object is this scarf, which I wove. So here it is. This is in just simple, plain stitch. I don't remember the name of it now, but it's literally just over and under. And last weekend, I went to a workshop offered by the Ottawa Valley Weavers and Spinners Guild on learning how to weave for beginners on a rigid heddle loom. I signed up for this workshop in October or November after attending the Ottawa Valley Weavers and Spinners Guild exhibition and sale in the Glebe, and I loved all the exhibits they had. I loved talking to the people who were part of the guild. I had been curious about weaving for a while, and they made it seem really accessible, and they were also kind, so open to new members, that I thought it would be fun to splurge, go to one of these workshops and dip my toes into weaving with the benefit of an instructor. So the workshop, I think, was $70 for 6 hours, and I learned how to weave. I learned how to weave on a rigid heddle loom. I loved it. It was so much fun, and I made a scarf in 6 hours. Not a super long one, but I've worn it, and with my balaclava, keeps me very, very warm. This is Briggs & Little yarn. The instructor also teaches a hand dyeing class, and hand dyed yarn that we got to choose from for the workshop. I went for this purple. It's very interesting to see how hand dyed yarn comes up differently in weaving than it does in knitting and crochet. I have a couple little nubs of it left. So I have 2 balls left. I need to weigh this to know how much came in for the 23 grams. But as you can see, this is what it looks like in a ball, and this is what it looks like in a scarf. And it was fun. Weaving is very fast, and it uses significantly less yarn. Weaving is not necessarily, it's faster than knitting, and it uses significantly less yarn than knitting. And I want to now rent a loom from the guild, which is an option, I think, according to their website, for not a lot of money. You just have to put down a deposit so that if you break or steal the loom, they have a way to buy a new one. But the rental fees are really not expensive at all. It's like $10 or $15 for the month to rent a whole loom. But now I want to rent a loom and make a table runner for our table, because we've been wanting one for a while, and if I make it in plain stitch, plain weave like this, it would be really fun, relatively fast. I want to solidify the things I learned in this workshop, and yeah. I don't love weaving as much as I love knitting, but I don't know if I love anything as much as I love knitting. And I'm very happy to have learned it. I found it really fun, and I really am happy that I went to a course and learned with other people and got to chat with them. That was fun as we were all weaving, and learn from someone. I could just ask questions, and not just ask questions about what we're doing, can you confirm that I'm doing this right, but you know, ask questions like, what kind of projects do you recommend for beginners, or what do you, I don't know, just asking about weaving, because I always have questions. I love learning about things, and yeah. Also, this is softer than I thought it would be. Briggs & Little, everyone always talks about how rustic it is and how scratchy it is, but I've been wearing this as a scarf, and I like it. So I think once I work down a couple sweater quantities of yarn for myself, I will knit myself a cardigan in Briggs & Little. But overall, quite pleased, and I would like to do another weaving project on the rigid heddle loom sooner rather than later to make sure I don't lose all the information I learned, I gained last weekend. And if you are in the Ottawa Valley and you are interested in spinning, weaving, dyeing, and a whole bunch of other stuff, I highly recommend the Guilds workshops. I really enjoyed mine. Yeah. So those are my finished objects. My first whip will be my loose cardigan by Emily Lewis, whose knitting name is Atelier Emily. And in my last episode, I held up most of the body of a cardigan and talked about how I was going to frog it, and I think I took it off the needles. No, it was already off the needles. And it sat in the corner for about 10 minutes after that, and then I just ripped out the whole thing while editing. So here's the new one. It's a raglan cardigan in a DK that I've modified the gauge and therefore the size. And my last one was a little bit too tight. It would have been great as a pullover, but for a cardigan I wanted more positive ease. So I ripped the whole thing out and started again. While I was at it, I made a couple modifications because I could, because I really liked the pattern the first time and didn't think these were a big enough deal to go back and fix at the time, but while I was given the second chance, I thought might as well. So this is a pretty basic cardigan pattern, and sorry, everything's flipping because it's stuck in it. I'm knitting this in small bird workshop. It's a small run yarn in a sport weight from a particular sheep named Garcia. It's undyed. I like it, and I might dye it in the future, but I really like this color too. And this cardigan is meant to mostly just have this I-cord edge, and then like a couple stitches of rib, and then the cardigan. And this cardigan is originally knit in 2 strands of mohair held together. And with that super fuzzy, floaty, low stitch definition fabric, that I-cord edge and I-cord being most of the button band looks beautiful. And I really like it, and I like the look on a whole bunch of other people's, outside of the designers. The project pages are lovely. But for this cardigan, I want this to be an office cardigan for myself, and I was picturing something with a bit more of a button band, so I did that. I added 2 stitches to the button band to make it more of a vertical rib button band and less of a I-cord only button band. Another thing is that my double stitches, resolving them from the German short rows at the front, were a little messy the first time around, and I didn't notice until after, so I made a point to be neater the second time, and you can still see them, but a lot less. And my ribbing for the collar was messier, and this already looks messy. I'm still not entirely sure why it's so messy, because this is not true here, and it's not true here, which is another cardigan that I knit back and forth. So I can't even say that it's a variance in my knit and my purl texture, because this was also knit 1, purl 1, and this ribbing is neater. But It was much, much messier on the original cardigan, and I took it slow and made it a little bit better. It doesn't even look better, it still looks messy here. But I tried to make this neater, and I'm going to block this aggressively to hope that that ribbing looks a bit less all over the place. So I overall then decided I was going to just add a single stitch to each or 4 stitches to the overall cast on, but I just cast on a medium instead. I measured my gauge once I blocked it before I ripped it out, and I'm at about 20.5 stitches in 4 inches. The pattern, I think, wants me to be at 18 or 19, so with the math for that, I just cast on a medium, which is the next size up recommended for my bust size, and I'm happy with it. This, much like it did the first time, feels like it went by really quickly. I kind of forced myself to work on this to take a break from this because I felt like this was going by too quickly and I wanted to take advantage of it more. And I'm quite happy that I did because I would like to finish this before the end of February so that I can wear it to the office while it's still quite cold as opposed to just a little bit cold. Who am I kidding? It's still going to be absolutely freezing in March. But yeah, it's hard to show you, but I'm working on it. I'm really happy with it. And once I finish my gift whip, I think this will be my primary project again. But it's a fun, well-written pattern. It's straightforward. It's classic. Only good things to say about the Luz. The fact that I ripped out the whole thing the first time is entirely on me. Okay, next I'm sort of knitting a Sophie shawl for my friend's birthday next week. I'm knitting it in Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk in what I don't know this color. This is some of my oldest stash yarn. I bought it online and the color was wrong, and I just haven't. I've been waiting for a good project to use this to give to this friend since then because she loves this kind of Cinderella blue and she looks really good in it. And I just didn't know what to make her until the Sophie shawl came along. However, I'm knitting this on that Surrey silk, which is mostly fluff. Maybe around like a DK weight in my opinion. 25 grams is 150 meters, 140 or something like that. It's color 15, if that helps you. I think it's something like sea green, except it's blue, which is part of the reason why I accidentally just completely bought the wrong thing. Yeah, so 25 grams is 140 meters, 77% alpaca, 23% silk. This is a super budget-friendly yarn. I knit one of my favorite sweaters of all time in the sage color of this. It's the Fortune sweater. And I like this yarn a lot as an alternative to anything that calls for 2 strands of mohair held together. I think this would also be a great alternative for the loose cardigan if you wanted to. But I didn't know what to do with it. I thought that I had 4 balls, but I think I actually have 3. And if I had 4 balls, I think I would have held 2 strands of it together and then knit this on like a 5.5 millimeter or a 6 millimeter needle, but I only had 3, and I thought about it and I thought to make a nice long wrap, I should hold it single. The reason why I say it's sort of a Sophie shawl is because I didn't buy the pattern and I'm just kind of winging it. I like the Sophie shawl. I don't think I'm going to knit one for myself because I don't like garter, but I like the shape of it and I like the idea of it. I love the idea of a just easy wearable chic scarf shawl that you can wear in her project photos, kind of like thrown over one shoulder. I think that's so cute. I think it works just as a regular scarf that you wrap around a whole bunch of times. I like this kind of trapezoidal shape, the square bit that I'm on now in the middle, to kind of wrap around your elbows and upper arms in a dress to look like fancy at dinner. My friend really likes elegant and dainty and feminine things, so I think she'll like it as a wrap for fancy things. She's also cold all the time, so she can wear this to the office over her shoulder and be chic in her Cinderella colors. But I just think it's a little silly that the Sophie scarf is a paid-for pattern. I mean, kudos to Petite Knit, but when she first came out with that, I did a little bit think it was a prank. And I do think that the only reason the Sophie scarf, distinct from the Sophie shawl, is so popular is because Petite Knit released it. I think we all just have to sit back and admire her insane status as a tastemaker. But I do think a garter ribbon with an I-cord edge and some increases is like, especially when I found out that the Sophie scarf and the Sophie shawl are just different gauges but the same rate of increase and basically the same thing. I was like, no, I will not pay for that. Especially since I'm doing this on a different gauge, a different size needle, a different type of yarn. I guessed. I am already afraid of the ire I'm going to receive about my comments about the Sophie scarf. I don't really like to voice unpopular opinions because I feel like when you say things on the internet, it's so hard to convey them with nuance because it sounds like I'm just like sitting on my platform and stating this as an absolute truth when I don't think that it is. I absolutely see the value of the Sophie scarf as a beginner project, absolutely. I see the value of it as a palette cleanser. I see the value of it as a way to get an amount of stash out, is a really cute way to use a really special skein of yarn and have it be against your neck, or a hair ribbon. I love a hair ribbon. I absolutely understand they make a lot of people very happy, and if they make you happy, that's fantastic. That's the whole point of knitting as far as I'm concerned, and I'm cheering you on. I just also, it's not practical for me the way that I live, my climate. It's going to be too warm for indoors and way too cold for outdoors. And also, I don't like garter, and also, why'd she release the same pattern twice on different weights of yarn? That's already a really basic thing, and then say we all have to pay for it? You can come for me. Feel free to explain to me in the comments all the reasons I'm wrong. But, so I've been increasing every 3 or 5 stitches, because I started with 5, but it was growing a little bit too slowly, so I increased to 3. Sometimes I forgot and it ended up being 5 anyway. I really like the look of it. I think it's nice. It's been sort of fun to knit. I like all of the knitting. I don't like the look of garter. It's not a style thing, it's a texture thing. I don't like looking at certain textures, like often in nature, like barnacles really freak me out because of the way that their texture looks. And something about horizontal garter invokes the same thing in me. Vertical garter I'm a little bit better about. I don't mind purl bumps. I don't mind even like purl stripes or knit purl. I love seed stitch. I could not tell you what it is about garter that gives me the ick, but it's not like a, oh, I think it's ugly thing. It's a, oh, it makes me uncomfortable thing. Don't know what it is, but not to knit, just to wear. So I'm happy to make this for my friend. And if I didn't have that kind of ick factor when it came to garter, I would knit one of these for myself. I saw a woman in the office with one of these, and I made up an excuse to talk to her about it because I knit her in the office. I absolutely have to talk to her. And she really recommended it as a gift. She said she made 3 over Christmas and loved hers, and said just to make sure you make the medium or the large. She thought the small was a little small, so I'm taking her up on that, except I don't know what the sizes are, so I'm just kind of, my goal is to keep knitting it as a square or a rectangle until it's long enough to cover both, like across my back, and then I will start the decreases. And I've been knitting this for about a week and a half. It replaced a pair of socks as my on-the-go like transit knitting, and I would work on this for a few rows every night after working on this. And at the beginning I really didn't enjoy it, and now I really am enjoying knitting it. But yeah, sort of a Sophie shawl. I don't know if the rate of increases is similar. I don't know if it's the same amount of stitches for the I-cord. I don't know if the weight, the width is appropriate or the length is appropriate, but I took inspiration from that shape. Consider me influenced by everybody else I watch on YouTube and Instagram. And if you are knitting a Sophie shawl or a Sophie scarf, I am in no way trying to cast any sort of aspersions or judgment onto you. Why is it a paid for pattern? And you cannot convince me that people are knitting them for any other reason. Like if anybody else came out with that they'd be knitting it the same amount compared to Petite Knit. Yeah, okay. I'm hoping this is now my primary project because I want to get this done in time for my friend's birthday. And yeah, the only thing about the yarn, I like working with this yarn. It always takes a second to get used to because that core of silk kind of cuts in to my hand a little bit. So I have to adapt. But I think that in storing it for so long in a bag with a zipper, I think at some point I caught the zipper on the first ball and shredded it a little bit because this yarn broke 3 or 4 times in the first, you can see some of the ends broke 3 or 4 times at the beginning, which was very unusual and didn't happen to me after that and didn't happen to me in the entire sweater that I knit before this. I think at some point while zipping and unzipping that bag, I caught 3 of the strands of this yarn in it and it weakened it. But yeah. And this yarn retails, oh, the ball fell, retails for like $7 US a ball. And I got a sweater out of 5 and I barely cracked into that 5th one. And I think that if you have an allergy to mohair, or if you are looking for something that is a fraction of the cost of holding 2 strands of mohair together, I recommend it. My next whip is a slow going one because, like I said, this pair of socks has been supplanted by the Sophie scarf as my transit knitting and my lunch break knitting in my Zoom school, well, for the 2 classes we had on Zoom school knitting. But I have absolutely been working on my acorn sock by Amanita Knits. And I'm almost done the heel increases and I'm about to start the actual heel flap. And it's been fun. I really like this yarn. I like the color. I like working with it. It's Artful Belle in the color Cabernet. I've been enjoying this toe-up sock heel flap and gusset construction. I swapped out the increases after a little bit from make ones to knit front and back because the make ones left these, you can see, these tiny holes that made me nervous about the yarn breaking at the bottom of my heel, at the bottom of my foot, and knit front backs just feel a little bit more secure, and I don't care if you have little pearl bumps because it's at the bottom of my foot and no one's going to see, especially in as dark a color yarn as this. So once the Sophie shawl is done, this will go back to being my on-the-go knitting, and hopefully I will have a pair of socks by the end of March. My last work in progress is this self-drafted saddle shoulder collar, dickie, bib, whatever you want to call it. I got this yarn as a special treat using my gift card for my birthday last year, and I wanted a winter accessory to use it with, and I wanted a dickie. In my 2023 plans video, highlighted the Dies Winterneck by Tonje Hodney and the Carl Johan collar by Pernille Larsen for knitting for Olive, and I do like both of those patterns quite a bit. I still think I will knit at least one of them, but I really wanted to use this yarn for that kind of collar, and neither of them, it did not suit either of those patterns, and it was either a completely incorrect size yarn, or I didn't have enough as listed in the pattern, and I just didn't want to mess around with it because this is one strand of a mohair blend and then one strand of DK, and having to frog it would have been a mess. So what I did was I knit a giant swatch. To really get a sense of this fabric, like I said before, I really like seed stitch. I don't know why this does not bug me, and in fact pleases me when garter does. Couldn't tell you, brains are weird, but I really liked how this mohair strand looks with the pearl bumps of the seed stitch specifically, but I also like stockinette. So I did a giant swatch, decided I liked this fabric in this gauge, which is about 11.5 stitches in 4 inches. Measured how wide I wanted it, how wide I wanted the saddles, and how low I wanted it to go, and then just knit that. And yeah, I'm knitting this on 5mm needles. It's going by very quickly because, as you can see, it's huge. Like I said, 11.5, 12 inches 4 inches is quite fast, and it's just a dicky. And I wanted these seed stitch borders to stop the stockinette from rolling and also highlight the beauty of this yarn combo. And I'm going to, once I'm done the front panel, which will be relatively soon, pick up the collar and do just a super chunky turtleneck cowl so that I can really burrow in the cold but have it not be a giant shawl, because I'm getting to that point in winter where I'm sick of everything being so heavy on me as my winter gear. And this almost kind of feels like armor in a way. I don't want to move my hair because it's going to cover it. Wait, I have a clip down. But it almost kind of feels like studs almost. It feels like a breastplate, but it's fluffy pink rainbow. So I like that. I think it'll look nice against my green coat, and it's really, really soft against my face. It doesn't irritate me at all. I don't understand why. The yarn I'm using is, it came as a kit, the Favorite set, and you're supposed to make this twist headband and a pair of mitts, and the pattern's on the back, and it comes with these two together. And I got the colors, I don't know which one is which. One of these is Seashore and the other is Crema. I'm actually assuming this is Seashore and this is Crema. And I'm almost on the front panel of my dicky, or my collar, my neck, my bib. And I have quite a bit left. I imagine I'm still going to have quite a bit left, especially considering I still have my whole swatch I could unravel if I wanted to. I might still make that headband with a twist and have like a little matching set. Ooh, it keeps wanting to, there we go. And this is, okay, so the mohair is handmade in whisker, 50% mohair, 38% wool, 12% nylon, and it's 50 grams. And then the wool is Fleece Artist Blue-Faced Leicester DK. And online it said it was superwash, but it doesn't say that it's superwash here. It doesn't feel super washy, but it still might be. Either way, I'm not going to be washing this in the machine. But this has been a fun palette cleanser because both of my sweaters are 100% undyed wool. And while I love these neutrals and they suit me very well and they suit my wardrobe and my needs very well, it got a little boring. And so I was really, really craving some color, which is why I chose this really out there purple for my woven scarf. Oh, and the neutral bow. So I was working on, you know, the cardigan, the bow, and this sweater all at once, and these are all just very neutral colors, which I love, but still. So I cast this on as a pop of color, and it's been really nice, especially since it's been quite gray here. But yeah, I'm happy with this. It's been fun to self-craft something. I really am so not a pattern writer. I don't have the mind for it, nor really the inclination. However, it's nice to be at a point where I can just like want something and then measure myself and my gauge and do it. And yeah, I really like the concept of these collars. My mom does too. And the Amy Slipover by Sandnesgarn and their famous at this point Soft for Women Meek Til Dama pattern book really appeals to me. It also kind of reminds me of armor. It reminds me of like a breastplate in a suit of armor in a way that I find very appealing. I want one. But first things first, all my other projects. So yeah, that's all my knitting. I don't have a lot of acquisitions, but I do have some. First, I think I bought this in December. If you've been here before, you know that one of my favorite hand dyers of all time is Emily C. Gillies yarn by Emily C. Gillies, a Canadian hand dyer who lives out east. And they do a monthly Luck of the Draw mystery yarn club where you get 5 skeins. You can get full size, but I always get the minis based on a color palette that you see in advance. Something about the January ones always get me. Last year, the January one was the first one I ever did and it got me hooked. I made this sock out of it. And its mate, which is also hanging up on my wall of sock. And I got these. And these ones are actually sport weight. They're 100% superwash merino sport weight. Each one is 45 meters and 20 grams. I think they're beautiful. And I want to make a pair of stripy mittens out of them. As soon as I finish my Dickie and the Sophie scarf, I will be working on my cardigan, that pair of acorn socks, and this pair of stripy mittens. I've been looking up different free sport weight mitten patterns to guess if I have the yardage I need for this and what kind of cast on is appropriate, but I just want some plain stripy mittens as another pop of color, and because I love these are not going to be wildly warm. A superwash merino is not going to be very wind resistant, but I think as a spring mitten it'll be lovely. A warmer day mitten, as a mitten that I wear underneath my thicker mittens, and as a mitten for days your hands are in your pockets, it'll be great. And I think it's beautiful. And once again, Emily knocked it out of the park, so hats off to them. I think my favorite on its own is this one. Look at that beautiful, beautiful, like periwinkle, lilac, depth of color. But I love them all together. And, oops, I'm dropping a lot today. Mittens! They will be mittens! I also got a braid of fiber in the same, because Emily offers the Luck of the Draw as both a fiber club and a minis club. And I just loved the palette so much that I got it as fiber as well. I would like to learn how to spin to make woven wall hangings, more as like art pieces and decor than for my yarn, than for knitting. And depending on my situation this summer, I will learn to spin. I will go to the guild. I will befriend the artisans at the guild, and I will spin this up into yarn for weaving. And then more recently, from the Knitting Loft in Toronto, I got 2 balls of Deverum Natura Unis in the color Cell as a contrast color for some yarn I already have from this brand in Poivre et Sel, salt and pepper, or pepper and salt. For a colorwork sweater I already have planned. I'm now kind of losing steam on my desire to knit that sweater because I looked through the project pages on Ravelry and they did not inspire confidence. However, I think I know enough and to modify it to suit me, and thankfully all those kind people put things on Ravelry that have made it easier to inform how to proceed. But I am not as keen to cast on as I was when I first ordered this yarn, but project notes weren't up, or I didn't see them, or both, and because it is a newer release. So we'll see. I still love that design, and I still love the scrap busting potential for that colorwork design, because I'm thinking it's gonna have some of this, some of this, some of this, and some of this, held with this, and my pink, and my blue, and it's just gonna be a lot of scraps out of stash, and this, which is left over from the bow. And I think I can make it work. But if it was just a 2-color colorwork sweater, I would have gone for Poivre Blanc as opposed to Cell, because I think that one looks better with this on its own. But this was a better contrast for all of these. So I went with that, and I think that's the right choice. Now that I'm losing steam on that pattern, and I'm thinking, what if I do a 2-color colorwork pattern instead with just these 2? I'm like less excited about this. But this is softer than this one, interestingly. I don't know why. Not wildly so, but it is. But yeah, I'm happy. And the Knitting Loft was so kind. I called them to ask what they thought between Cell et Poivre Blanc for the contrast for the Poivre et Sel, and they sent me photos via email of the Poivre Blanc compared to Cell and Poivre Blanc to get an idea of the contrast and gave me their opinions, and I really appreciated that. So 2 thumbs up to the Knitting Loft. That is all the knitting I have to show you today. On my list of things to cast on next, like I said already, I want those mittens. I want to finish my dickie, I want to finish my socks, I want to finish my cardigan. I also want to start that blue sweater with the Knitting for Olive and Shibui stuff I got on sale over break. I have to commit to a pattern to do that, but I would like to knit a sweater in that soon before it gets really warm, which isn't going to be soon, but these are the lies Canadians tell ourselves at the beginning of February. And I also am going to knit a little octopus for a coworker who's expecting this spring, and a whole bunch of other little scrappy things coming up soon. I'm hoping to do Rachel Loves Saddle Shoulders, saddle shoulder appreciation and pattern discussion video soon, but we'll see. I still have to get a handle on how I want to organize that. And yeah, we'll talk again soon. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below if you're interested in the Ana Luisa buy one get one 50% off sale until February 16th. And if you're watching this after that, you can always use my code NightSky20 for 20% off your first order. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you and your loved ones are happy and healthy, and I will talk to you guys again soon.